US bringing in sanctions on Russian oil yet again, and India is right in the headline. But the real thing here is India might not be affected at all, but the global economy really needs to worry, and US would have to answer for it. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh, and in today's session we are going to break open this sanctions that have been placed on Russian oil and try to understand that why India seems a little immune as of now, but definitely it is a huge risk, a huge gamble coming up for global economy in terms of these sanctions. So let us begin with understanding that what exactly has happened. As of now, the US Senate has passed the Sanctioning Russia and Iran Act of 2026, and based on this bill, there can be direct imposition of tariffs up to 100% on countries which are buying large quantities of Russian oil and gas. So we don't care pretty much about other countries, but of course we have to talk about what will happen to India and how India's economy will take it. But in this very context, we have to clearly understand that when we are looking at this given graph, and if you can see here that the amount of crude oil total import that we are having, a big fraction as of now is coming from Russia. This red line clearly indicates that. And this variation, if you see, this immense jump, recent jump has come into picture after the West Asian crisis. Let me remind you, it was US which gave India the waiver to buy Russian oil. Now, the idea is there will be sanctions if you are buying from Russia and if you are buying in huge quantity, and we can visibly say that India is falling in that bracket. Now, definitely we need to understand that what can be the consequences, but before we talk about the consequences, let us clearly talk about the possibility that there is a clear picture in front of us that how this might not have an effect at all. And why are we saying so? Let us do a deep dive there, starting with understanding that how does this bill come into the picture. So this bill had a bigger and more brutal version earlier, where the imposition of sanctions was not 100%, it was up to tariffs of 500%. And the whole idea was targeting the countries who are buying Russian crude oil and gas. Now, in this context, when you say the present version, it clearly shows that it has been dialed down by a huge volume where the tariff is only 100%. And now, they are targeting only 5 largest buyers of Russian energy. So, it gives US a clear ambit to target China as well. Another thing that I want you to notice here, that reduction in number is so huge that it clearly points out that US does understand that what is the importance of Russia being a supplier in the global oil economy, and something like this is going to shake up the global oil economy. So the idea is to deter but not definitely crumble and collapse the global economy, and that is why we are seeing this huge decrease. Now let us also talk about the legislative route of this act. The reason I am showing you this will also bring into your mind that how this act does not mean immediate imposition of sanctions. How? So when we are looking at the legislative route, as of now the Senate has passed the act, which is the first barrier. That is done. Then it goes to the House, then it goes to the President for assent, and then the implementation will be done. If at all we get to see the House does not pass when it is going to reconvene on 31st August, whatever we are going to talk about consequences, that is not going to happen. And even if that is coming into the picture, there are a lot of legal, administrative, and legislative processes that remain, which can be present as hurdles. So if you remember, when initially President Donald Trump came up with reciprocal tariffs, how the Supreme Court of US struck that down. So this is something I'm trying to show, that we cannot start a panic right away when we don't know that what is coming into motion. And if at all, we have to, let's just say that all of these hurdles that I am optimistically talking about, they are crossed, then what? Then India can also ask for waivers, because US president does have the ability to waive provision, and India happens to be one of those countries where we have got waivers, be it for Chabar port, be it for Russian crude oil energy, time and again. So as of now, the picture for India is quite clear. The panic has not set in because there are multiple routes option available to us. But in this very context, it is very important for us to understand that how we can dial down the dependence on Russian crude oil and energy, because since 2022, we are looking at an immense increase. Now, when we are talking about this immense increase, as I showed you in the first graph itself right here, that how the 2022, the starting of Russia-Ukraine war was a watermark in the relation between India and Russia in terms of crude oil energy imports, because that is when India came into a better and leveraging position even after having such a huge import dependence. Because when we are looking at our import dependence, it is somewhere around 88%. But Russian crude gave us such tempting, such rightly placed, and something offering strategic interests to us, where we just did not have competitive pricing. That means we were getting discounted crude oil because nobody was buying from Russia. We had discounted price for us, but we can also clearly depend on the volume that would be sent in. It was not something that could have been gone wrong. Then when we are looking at Russia as a supplier for India, we also have to understand that this was also a way of supply diversification, where Iran is also our supplier, but Middle Eastern suppliers, constant dependence on them and how they can distort the prices was something difficult for India to manage. So that gave us diversification as well. And most importantly, this was an energy security hedge that we cannot deny. What do I mean by this hedge? So when we are looking at this situation right in front of us, imports from Russia come to us via Black Sea, Suez Canal, and then Bab el Mandeb, and then in India. So when we are looking at another alternative route, which is through Strait of Hormuz, Chabar port, if you remember, then in this context, whenever this is blocked, this is an option that can be exercised. And in this context, another thing that you have to understand, that when we are looking at the closure of Red Sea, for example, when we are talking about Houthi rebels and how this might be blocked, we have other alternatives also present from where we can procure Russian oil. So this is something difficult for India to carry out diplomatically, but as of now, even after the whole world being stuck at Strait of Hormuz, India's crude oil has come through Red Sea without being affected at all. And when India has gained so much, it is very difficult to decide if that India wants to cut Russian imports, because it does not mean cutting crude oil volume. It is also about the partnership we have had. And if you do not care about the partnership, let us talk about the higher oil prices, because these higher oil prices is not going to be paid by the government, they are going to be paid by you. The prices have already increased after West Asian crisis, there is no reduction in sight, and if more oil prices are increased, it is going to directly impact you. Or if we continue with Russian import, then we might get to protect energy security, the prices might be okay, but we have to wonder that what do we do with US and how we manage the sanction pressure that is being placed. Because when we are looking at a trade partner, US is an important export destination, and we sure have seen in last 2 years that President Donald Trump definitely knows how to use tariffs to make sure that the country does what he wants. So yes, that is surely a dilemma that India would have to navigate if at all the sanctions come into place. But as of now, it seems like that there is a long way to go in that context, and India has navigated that way quite well. Now let us come to the second part of the picture, where I said that India does seem immune, but global economy is at the risk. So why are we saying sanctions are going to hit the global economy like just another West Asian crisis. Because when we are looking at Russian supply, imagine if India is importing 50% as of now. If Russian supply takes a dip, that means it does not exist in the global oil supply at all. Then the global oil availability, that will also take a dip. If the global oil availability is, whenever the supply is lesser, demand is higher, price shoots because more people want it, everybody wants it. So the price will increase. The crude prices across the globe will increase. That will lead to increase in fuel costs, that will lead to increase in transportation cost, insurance, premium, and the inflationary pressure. And another thing that you should clearly understand, that the timing is very dangerous. Why dangerous? Strait of Hormuz is not sorted yet. And the biggest supplier from the Strait of Hormuz, that was Saudi Arabia, they were using the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. But Saudi Arabia is being countered by Houthis which are present in Yemen. So we are already constrained in terms of supply. Another huge shock here is going to take these prices through the roof, and this effect is not going to be just felt by one or two, but global economy. And this is something that US would not want, because the moment this happens, the allies will not take a hit for you for things they are not doing. So this is where the bigger fears how this sanction might affect globe, and that is why how US might play it out remains in a very questionable place. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section. That was all from my side. I'll be leaving you here with prelims practice questions this time, because this is a very important topic, multiple concepts, multiple facts around it. So this is the first question for you. A question on similar lines has already appeared in prelims before. Next question is this one, and the last one is this. I'll be waiting for your answers in the comment section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.